Okay, hello friends. So welcome back to Chaotic Crime. We're back for another ep. We're back on it'll be episode 2, season 2, which is very exciting. Like I said, I'm feeling very refreshed this season, so I think we're ready to go. But today I've got a really crazy story case. That's not a brain, that wasn't a brain blank either. That was just like a moment of silence for what we're all about to hear. Anyway, I know I say this every case that this case is crazy. This case actually is crazy because it's a level of corruption that I don't think all of us have probably heard. And like this level where it's like it almost looks black and white. So why hasn't anything happened? But I'm stuttering again. I feel like that's going to be a lot of cases that we hear, especially because, like I said, this month of June, we're doing unsolved cases. And I've also, oh my goodness. I also have a couple of other things coming this month, which I'm very excited to be announcing. And hopefully you guys will have that announcement in, I want to say, the next week if I kick my ass into gear. So that's my little introduction for this episode. I want you guys to prep yourselves. Prep. Just get ready because it's this one isn't just suspicious, it's kind of chilling. I think I've deflected enough now. So we're going to get into it. So today we're going deep, and I mean really, really deep, into the case of Kendrick Johnson, a 17-year-old boy who was found dead inside a rolled-up wrestling mat at his high school in Georgia in 2013. Authorities called it an accident. But the deeper you go, the more you realize that something is not right. So in this episode, I'm going to lay it all out. If you guys have never heard of this case, that's fine. You're about to hear about it. I'm going to dive pretty deep because I don't really feel like, obviously I've compacted it because I want all my short attention span humans to be able to listen along and not get distracted, because I know that feeling. But it's really hard to not lay it all out. So Kendrick Johnson was a 17-year-old black student, and he lived in Valdosta, Georgia, and he attended Lowndes High School. He was known to be a soft-spoken, respectful, and seriously athletic kid. He played basketball, he played football, and he had ambitions for going pro. He also came from what appeared to be a very tight-knit family. His parents, Jacqueline and Keith Johnson, were incredibly close to him and very supportive of his dreams. So by all accounts and on the surface, Kendrick looks like a good kid, and he is a good kid. And I don't want you guys to vast from anything different in this story, because by all accounts, he remains to be a good kid, which I think is one of the most heartbreaking things in this entire case. Is that I like to say that there's never a perfect victim, but Kendrick genuinely looks like a perfect victim. Like this should have never happened to him. So that leads me to the next part, is how does a kid with no enemies, no prior incidents of trouble, end up dead in a high school gym mat? So this next part that I'm going to jump into, which is sort of a bit of a breakdown of Kendrick's last day that he was seen alive, I'm going to break it down in like a dot point sort of manner, and then I'm going to get into the nitty gritty details after that. So bear with me. This part may come across as a little bit direct. So between January 10th and January 11th of 2013, and this is the day it all happened. So January 10th, 2013, Kendrick attends school as per normal. Surveillance footage from the school shows him walking into the old gym at around 1:27 p.m. After that, he's never seen alive again. By January 11th, 2013, at around 10:30 a.m., students at the school noticed something inside a large upright wrestling mat in the corner of the gym. And it's Kendrick. And he's dead. So his body is upside down inside the gym mat, and he's surrounded by vomit and blood. His face is swollen, and it appears to be what the students stated as unrecognizable. So I'm really going to try to paint this out for you guys, because when I first heard this story, I'm like, a wrestling mat, like how? And in the visual episode, you're actually going to see, I guess, a diagram of what they've put up and like what people have put up and sort of worked out in relation to this case. So I'll put that up so that you guys can see. But just to paint a picture, it's a tall wrestling mat rolled up and it's standing vertically. And it has a human body inside of it, head first down in the center. And it was in a high school gym and it was found by students. So I don't know about you, but I genuinely couldn't imagine being one of the kids that found it. Obviously, being Kendrick is 10 times worse, but having to witness this as a child would have been pretty traumatic. So the saddest thing in this case is the local sheriffs quickly ruled Kendrick's death an accident. And here's their theory, or the story that was given to the public and family after the investigation. Kendrick had stored a pair of shoes inside the rolled up mat. Instead of lifting the mat or tipping it over, he climbed up and tried to reach inside of it from the center. So he then got stuck upside down, begun losing his oxygen intake, and eventually he died from asphyxia, meaning his lungs were compressed and he slowly suffocated to death. Now, in the reports, I believe it was ruled as positional asphyxia, to be exact. But essentially, same thing is he lost his oxygen intake. So after the investigation, or if we can even call it an investigation, that was it. That was the explanation, and that was genuinely the case closed. And for me, I was sort of sitting there and going like, that's it. That's the case closed. Like that, it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to explain why it doesn't make any sense. So here's the thing that for me automatically discounts this entire story. Kendrick was 5'10", and he was about 72.5 kilos. The mat opening was 14 inches wide, barely enough for him to fit, let alone wiggle all the way inside the mat. He had a pair of shoes that were found right next to the mat and not even inside the mat. His arms were pinned to his sides, which doesn't make sense if he was reaching for something. And overall, Kendrick's shoulder width was too wide to fit inside that mat. So if you're stuck upside down and you're trying to grab something and your arms are what? At your side? No, your arms are above your head. Can somebody... I'm lost for words on that. Like, I'm lost for words. Anyway, I'm going to keep going because I'm going to be lost for words quite a lot. So another important fact that I want to note that discounts this story as well is that Kendrick's shoes that he was reportedly trying to get out of the mat was actually found clean at the bottom of the mat, below Kendrick, despite the fact that he had been bleeding quite heavily. So if his shoes are underneath him and he's bleeding and the blood is dripping down, they're going to go on his shoes unless they were placed there. I'm just throwing up question marks right now. Like, the silence is purely intentional. Another really weird fact that I read is that a further pair of Kendrick's sneakers were found on top of Kendrick, inside the mat that his body was found in with his body. So not the pair he was trying to grab, an entirely separate pair. The kids actually said it seemed like these shoes had been thrown inside the mat. And then we're going to get on to the other items that were found inside the gym that looked to be stained with blood. The exact location of where these items were actually found, I'm not sure. I don't think it was disclosed. I can't find it anyway. And you're going to understand why a lot of information from this case is just genuinely missing. And I think when I say genuinely missing, it's intentionally missing. So here's where I'm going to put heavy emphasis on the word alleged, because I think it's very important. You're going to hear me say that word a lot, by the way. getting you ready, the word alleged is going to come out a lot, because at the end of the day, like I said, all of our cases in June are unsolved or unresolved, as I like to say for some of them. So I feel like I have to say alleged because obviously no charges have been laid, and of course innocent until proven guilty. But make what you will of what I say, and that is all I'm going to say, and we're going to move forward. So when I say alleged, I'm saying alleged on the fact that it was blood on the items, because the police department actually came out and said that it wasn't blood. Now, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, because there is one image that has come up of the shoe, and to me it looks like blood. And obviously, given the entire situation that's taken place, it just seems off to me. So I want to really emphasize that things are going to get really suspicious. So I'm really struggling myself to believe what the government has stated. When I say government, the department, the police department. I haven't seen all the items. Like I said, I've only seen an image of this shoe, and having all the information I have, I just feel like it should have been at least admitted into evidence to then be tested, for then us to find out what was actually on these items. Like, if there weren't blood, what was it? Didn't look like paint. So rolling back to what I just said, these items were not admitted into evidence. They were not tested. So we never got an official report, no official findings. And this just kind of gets worse, because allegedly more blood was found on the walls of the gym. And again, the police department wanted to state that it wasn't relevant to the case. The way I see that is, why is a high school leaving blood on the walls then? Like, that just seems really, really bizarre to me, that we've got cleaners at high schools, we've got all of these services, and we're leaving blood on the walls. Or was there another incident that took place that wasn't relevant? They just said it wasn't relevant. There was no explanation other than that. Like, there was no backup to that. So I guess it just kind of left my brain rattling, because I feel like a lot of stuff was just kind of swept under the carpet. So I'm struggling to buy anything that's being fucking said. And I just want to emphasize, like, that's a like healthcare safety hazard, having blood on the walls, if blood was left over on the walls. That's just like absurd to me. It doesn't even seem like a logical excuse. Okay, so moving on to after Kendrick's body was actually discovered. It was reported that the coroner was not notified immediately that a body was even found, which just kind of feels off. But then again, there's a lot about this case that's going to feel off. It should have been a matter of urgency. I mean, it's an innocent 17-year-old boy that was found dead on school property in a gym mat, seemingly rolled up. So I really don't know what is considered an emergency at this point. However, once the coroner completed his report, he stated that the body had been moved from where its original findings was. The death could not have taken place in this location. So he also stated that the overall scene had been corrupted. I wonder by who. And he very, very interestingly also put in his report that the police department was not being cooperative at this point. So during this next part, we're going to break down the first autopsy and the overall findings in terms of death. Now, that wasn't me making a mistake either. I did say first autopsy. And I feel like if I had a co-host in this moment, they would go, Tell, why did you say first autopsy? That's because there was 2 fucking autopsies. I know. Drop the hammer. Crazy. But we're going to get to that. So I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown of the first autopsy. Now, please bear in mind that this autopsy was completed by the state of Georgia. And when I say the state of Georgia, it was completed by a coroner that was appointed by the state of Georgia and the police department, which means I'm allegedly telling you to take the results with a grain of salt. Please. So autopsy 1 breakdown. They ruled that Kendrick's death was accidental, and the cause was positional asphyxiation. No signs in terms of trauma were actually noted, and the report was really vague and very incomplete. So this is where I'm going to jumble, and it may get a little bit confusing, but just stay with me, because before we go into the second autopsy, I need to talk about the CCTV footage. I really need to sort of try to give you guys a real idea of the high school layout. So the high school in which Kendrick attended had 35 security cameras surrounding the school area. So the CCTV footage from the 10th of January shows many students coming in and out of the gym. Now, the 10th of January is Kendrick's death. I just want to pinpoint that because obviously his death was the 10th and his body was found on the 11th. Now, not one person reports or notes that they heard anything strange, anything suspicious, anything out of the ordinary that day. But I want to be so honest when I'm talking about this part because I like to give you guys accurate, exact information. But there is truly so many discrepancies and misinformation regarding the timestamps and exact timelines of this day that it's hard for us to actually give an exact timeline and lead ups until Kendrick's death. So some of the timestamps are completely out of sync. There's missing chunks of footage and there's just a million red flags. Okay, so let's break down what the CCTV footage did actually show us. It showed us the time that Kendrick entered the gym. That's there. The time after he enters, just gone. And remember how I said there's 35 cameras around this high school? There was 3 different camera angles that should have been able to capture his final moments, but they're either missing, corrupted, or it wasn't recording. And of course, I'm going to sound like a broken record. All of this was just explained away by faulty tech, with the department even saying that the FBI looked over the footage and confirmed that there were no missing moments. So I just want to clarify that I couldn't find very many reports in my research, and I mean, I really did look into it, that the FBI looked very hard into this. And you'll figure out in a second why I'm so skeptical as soon as the FBI have come into play on this one. Generally, when the FBI comes in, you kind of know that, oh my God, something's happening. But I just don't think they were helpful on this one. So I want to bring it back because Kendrick's family have desperately been searching for answers. And I want to go into Kendrick's family's side more, but we're just going to cover the facts for now. And I say facts because, you know, the facts of this case are just what the department's made up at this point. But it is important to note now that they did not buy any of this either. Not even a tiny bit. So the family did actually hire a forensic expert who said that the footage had been tampered with. Okay, so you're really going to understand my skepticism in this next part. I'm going to touch on our suspects. Now, I want to note that all of this is alleged. Apart from what is facts and what has been stated in the investigation's reports. So I'm going to keep you guys along with what's alleged and what is facts. Because I don't want you guys to get confused, but you guys are going to make your own mind up about what you think. I think you already know what my mind is. Even though you don't even know all the facts, I think you already know where I'm going. But we're going to talk about our main suspect. And honestly, there's no suspects apart from this suspect. Like I say, suspects, because there is another person involved, but it's primarily one person. So like I mentioned previously, Kendrick's family's fight for justice has not halted or paused at all. They are 1,000% sure that Kendrick did not succumb to some kind of accident himself. They really do believe that something happened, that someone wronged their son to the point of death. So the reports show that Kendrick was reportedly having issues with another classmate, Brian Bell. Now I want to drop the bomb. Brian Bell is the son of Rick Bell, who, ding, ding, is an FBI agent. So the Bell family is alleged to be guilty of witness tampering in this case. However, I will note it has not been proven in a court of law. However, the Johnson family does believe that Kendrick Bell was murdered by Brian and Brandon Bell, who were both students at the high school at the time. So now we're going to break down some of the incidents that were alleged between Kendrick and Brian. And again, with the word allegedly, I think it's going to be the word of the episode. So Brian allegedly had a past fight with Kendrick on the bus. An anonymous affidavit claimed that Brian hit Kendrick with a 20.5 kilo dumbbell. It's about 20.5. It's probably 20.4. So we're going to say 20.5. So it is important to note that the Bell family has denied all allegations and were never charged. So now we're going to wind back to our CCTV footage and its missing chunks. So this footage was heavily scrutinized by the public, by the family, and by too many people to truly name. However, somehow this footage was seemingly credible enough to be the alibi for Brian Bell. Investigators stated that this was sufficient enough evidence to prove that Brian was not in the gym at the time of Kendrick's death. And I just want to ask, what exactly is Kendrick's time of death? Since everything is so chopped up, allegedly. And look, I get it. Allegations are not convictions. But too many pieces of this puzzle feel hand placed, if that makes sense. Just think about that. And then the idea of a federal level cover up, I don't even want to believe it. But the facts are just simply too shady, and the facts are the facts. Facts don't let you down. Okay, so let's go back to the official cause of death. I want to note in Kendrick's supposed death ruling, his lungs should have been heavier than normal. This is a very, very normal thing when people die of asphyxia. Kendrick's lungs weren't heavy. So Kendrick's family, and let's just rave for a second, who are truly God sent, they fought so hard for answers and to get justice. I simply won't stop praising them for this. I really won't, because I feel like this would have been such a difficult time for them. It still is a difficult time for them. And I really don't think many of us would understand this level of pain and then the blatant disrespect from the very people who were brought in to give you justice. So with this information of the lungs and the inconsistent details throughout the entire case that we've discussed, they made the extremely difficult but probably easy decision to exhume their son's body. And this was in the hopes that this might really lead to some justice or even some answers. So I'm going to put a trigger warning here, because I bet you guys thought this case was like bad in terms of corruption, but things are about to get like a lot worse. A lot worse. So here we are. We're at the second autopsy. Now, this is an independent autopsy and it was paid by the family. So it was performed by a Dr. William Anderson. Now, he found blunt force trauma to the right side of Kendrick's neck and jaw. He ruled the death as non-accidental. Non-accidental. Stated it was more likely Kendrick died from a blow, possibly a dumbbell or some sort of object, and not suffocation. So the second autopsy, to just like literally put it into complete clear terms, it's not just a different opinion, it's a completely different cause of death. Totally different. Completely new findings in this autopsy that were not even noted in the first. So remember how I told you guys to just, it gets worse? This is where it gets worse. Because when Dr. Anderson opened up Kendrick's body for the second autopsy, which is very, very standard practice, they found that every major internal organ, so his heart, his brain, his lungs, his liver, all of them were missing. And I mean every internal organ. So even his tongue, like his tongue down to his pelvis, is the way that his mother's described it in TikTok videos. And honestly, guys, if this horror is not bad enough, the body cavity was filled with newspaper. So then the blame game begins because obviously people are asking questions. And when I say people, I mean the Johnsons. They're like, where the fuck are our son's organs? So the funeral home blamed the GBI for discarding the organs. The GBI blamed natural decomposition. The pathologist said that the organs were never returned after the first autopsy. And here's the thing, none of this is standard protocol, not even remotely, not even at all. So just to break down what normally happens, and now I don't know if this is in every state or every county or every country. I just know that this is particularly the autopsy procedure in the state of Georgia. So once the autopsy is completed, the organs from the body that have been tested and examined externally are then placed in bags and put back inside the body. There is no world, no planet, no whatever little spot in space that putting newspaper inside a young boy's body is ever okay. This was just lazy practice and it feels like complete destruction of evidence. So his mum, who is incredibly active on TikTok, has described them stuffing him with newspaper in her clips that she uploaded back in 2021. Now, I've actually attached this clip below so that you guys can go and follow and watch her videos if you like. She's quite a loud, outspoken woman, and I really like her TikToks. I like that she's trying to raise awareness. She often gets asked if she wants, justice or revenge. And I think in her case, she probably wants both. And I don't really feel like any of us can judge her for that. She stated that the feeling she felt when they stuffed her son with newspaper made her feel like they treated him as if he was a garbage can. And I don't think any of us can really imagine how that would have felt as a mother. So his organs were evidence, and maybe even the only thing that the family had left to get any answers. And I can only hope that some way, somehow, justice will still prevail. Okay, so before we wrap up today's episode, because I know I've yapped on, I'm going to blow your mind. Allegedly. Just allegedly, all right? Okay, so two things that have surfaced in this case, and I mean there's been so many things that have surfaced, but this is probably two major things. And we could really go on all day about all of the things that have come up. But I'm going to state these two and you guys can take what you will. Again, alleged. So we're going to rewind back to our suspects. Now, I say suspects because I did mention the name Brandon Bell. Brandon Bell is Brian's brother, and he was allegedly there when Kendrick was killed, and he took part in killing Kendrick, allegedly. A lot of the blame seems to be around Brian, so that is our major suspect. It seems like Brandon just got strung into this, if this is what has occurred, allegedly. So I'm going to state and then attach a clip below, and then in this next clip, I'm going to enter this audio recording, which is the Bells boys stating that they did not see Kendrick at all on the day of his passing.
Did you see Kendrick Johnson? No, sir, not at any point during that day. Where were you?
I was in class. First block, second block, third block, and fourth block.
Close to the gym?
No,
Did you see Kendrick that day?
I did not.
So now that you guys have heard that, it's actually come out that this was completely false. Totally false. And it's purely based around the CCTV footage. So whether that's the chopped CCTV footage or whether there's a, accurate copy somewhere that we would all love to see, that's how I guess they got away with saying that they hadn't seen Kendrick on this day. Now, if you guys actually want to see this clip, I'm going to put it in our visuals and I've attached it below. So here's the real alleged mind blower. I read a document with a written confession from a Ryan Anthony Hernandez. Now, Ryan is a friend of Brandon, Brian's brother. And there's also going to be another name, Ryan, that's going to come up. So we're going to call Ryan that wrote the statement is going to be Ryan A. So remember that. Now, this is when the word allegedly is going to come out really heavily because I just don't know how accurate this document is. And of course, it's third party. But it's pretty damning in regards to making me think I'm right in all my opinions. So I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of what the document says, and I've also attached the document below for you guys to go and look at the video that I found. I've attached a video that you can find on TikTok because I felt like that was going to be easiestly accessible for everybody. So the document and the, I guess, written confession from Ryan A states the following. Ryan states that he met Brandon Bell back in 2016. Kendrick passed 3 years previously in 2013, just to give us some dates and timelines. Ryan A stated that on one occasion, himself and Brandon Bell were in Jacksonville, Florida, which is Brandon's primary place of residence at this point. This occasion was said to be in April of 2016. Brandon Bell himself claimed to Ryan that his younger brother Brian Bell had killed Kendrick. Ryan A then asked some further questions regarding Kendrick's death to Brandon, and this is what Brandon supposedly said happened. 4 people were claimed to be involved, including Kendrick. Allegedly, these people were Brandon Bell, Brian Bell, Ryan Hall, and Kendrick Johnson. Ryan Hall is a different Ryan to Ryan A. I just want to emphasize on that. So it's alleged that all 4 parties were in the gym when an argument broke out. The argument was in relation to a female who was supposedly Brian's girlfriend at the time. I don't know what the argument was actually over in terms to why the boys were arguing. I just know it was about a female, and the female was Brian's girlfriend at the time. Brian was taking steroids at this time, and out of rage or potentially due to the effects of the steroids, he claims Brian struck Kendrick in the neck with a 20.45 kilo dumbbell. Then, according to Brandon, Brian then threatened Ryan, who was witness to the entire thing. He told Ryan that if he did not keep quiet and help Brian dispose of the body, his FBI agent father, Rick Bell, would make sure that Ryan paid. I also want to note that Rick Bell retired from the FBI, and it seems like this happened somewhat soon after the death. Now, I could be wrong in that one, but this was 3 years after Kendrick's death, and in this report, he was already retired. So 3 years is a short amount of time for me. If, like, I don't know whether he was nearing retirement. I don't know ages. Probably should have looked into that, but that just seems off. Okay, so there were actually a few more things that were claimed in this statement, which, I mean, how can you blow my mind more than that, really? But it was also claimed that Brian Bell told Ryan A that his father, Rick Bell, had gotten in touch with the sheriff, Chris Prine, I believe it's pronounced, after being notified of the fight between Brian and Kendrick and then of Kendrick's death. Brian Bell also stated that the sheriff, Chris Prine, then got in touch with the coroner, the one appointed by the department, you know, the one that completed that first autopsy. So Brandon Bell also then stated that his father, Rick, got in touch with another FBI agent and then facilitated the editing of the CCTV footage, removing at least 1 hour and 25 minutes of the footage. Brandon Bell claimed that all of Kendrick's organs were removed and his body was filled with newspaper to interfere with any effort to try and establish a timeline, a correct time of death, or otherwise disclose any injuries that Kendrick may have been victim to. Brandon also claimed and stated that the autopsy was falsely documented on purpose and intentionally. Ryan A. then finalized his statement there. He officially gave this statement on the 17th of August, 2017. And I mean, I do not have anything to say to that other than why isn't somebody behind bars? This statement is so damning. If true, it's so damning. And if at anything else, this entire investigation should have been pulled from the Georgia Police Department and given to somebody else to formally look into. So this case truly makes me crazy. I think the police department really did think people just weren't going to care. But there is too many discrepancies in this case, too many questions, and one wonderful family who didn't deserve such injustice, let alone to mention the wonderful victim, Kendrick Johnson. I think because they used big words like FBI in this case, we were just expected to turn a blind eye, and that's fucking insane to me. The FBI has a direct link to this investigation, a direct conflict of interest, a conflict of interest so strong that they would in fact rule on the CCTV footage not being chopped and out of sync, that timeframes aren't missing. And then, of course, we've got the statement that Ryan Anthony made 3 years after Kendrick's death, and no investigation was reopened for that. You know, that there's no stronger love than what a father has for their son and in their need to protect. There's one thing I've learned in so many crime cases is this is such a common play. Such a common play. Parents will do anything to protect their children. And I know that's one thing that if you're a parent, you can understand. But morally, this is wrong. There's so much that has just been swept under the carpet. Blood that's not blood. Things that have never been admitted to evidence, never been properly tested, CCTV footage, conflicts of interest, instant rulings, messy alibis, so much alleged bullshit that it's actually becoming comical at this point. This case was just so grossly, so severely misconducted. And I can't say anything else about it. I'm going to leave it at that. But if you don't agree, I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to very quickly touch over some of the legal fights and the media spotlight on this case so that you guys know what's been going on. And there is a couple of documentaries that I want to recommend if you guys want to go and watch. So in 2015, the Johnson family filed a $10 million wrongful death lawsuit against the Bell family and others. The case, however, was later dismissed due to insufficient evidence, of course. So then in 2021, the county sheriff actually reopened the investigation, but then reaffirmed the original accidental death ruling in 2022. Now, I truly cannot imagine how this would have felt for the Kendricks. It's like another jab, another blow. Just when they thought that maybe something could be happening, they've just been shafted again. So this case has actually gotten some media spotlight, which I'll briefly mention, as a lot of high-level people have heard about this case and have been impacted. So they have truly allowed space in their spotlight to bring awareness. So national coverage blew up after celebrities like Ricky Smiley and Dr. Phil picked up this case. The documentary Finding Kendrick Johnson 2021 brought huge awareness. And then wonderful Benjamin Chump, the civil rights attorney, also worked on the George Floyd case, joined the Johnsons in their pursuit for justice. Kendrick was such a good kid. His family loved him and cherished him, and he had plans and dreams and goals. He was on the honor roll, and he was just trying to be somebody. And now he will forever be 17. All he deserved was justice, a decent investigation, and if it nothing else, respect. So as of June 2025, there are no arrests, no charges, no closure. But the Johnson family continue to protest, speak out, and push for federal investigation. They believe Kendrick was murdered, and they believe powerful people helped bury the truth. And honestly, I don't blame them. If this was my kid, I'd be flipping over every stone, screaming from every fucking rooftop, and making sure the world never forgets his name. And that's why I brought this case to you today, because I don't want you to forget Kendrick's name. This case shook me when I read about it, and I get goosebumps when I talk about it. And I'm tearing up even just thinking about all the things that I've read about it and how wonderful of a kid this boy seemed. And that was just taken away from him for no reason. I mean, no reason would justify it anyway, but the least you could do is give us something. So Kendrick deserved better. His family deserves answers, and we, the public, deserve the truth. So I want you to tell people about this case. I want you to watch the documentary. I want you to keep talking about Kendrick Johnson. This case is truly a stark reminder of the importance of thorough investigations and accountability. So that is all for today's episode of Chaotic Crime. And I'm fired up, and I'm guessing you are too. So if you've got any theories, any thoughts, or even just any outrage that you want to offshore, please message me. You know that I love hearing from you guys. So I'm Talana, and this was Chaotic Crime. And until next time, stay loud, stay curious, and never stop asking questions.